الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Passed away last Sunday. He used to come to this masjid of yours, and if you could ask the Imam to make some du'as for him.
What's his?
Shane Bakari.
Okay, sure. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله فإن الله تعالى مع المتقين وبعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the blessed Prophet of Islam and the seal of prophets, the greatest of creation, our master Muhammad ibn Abdullah salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. He revealed to him, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق, the first verse اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Read or recite in the name of your Lord who has created. And this verse, being the first to be revealed, is something of significance that we should reflect over and contemplate over. And by various ulama and thinkers of Islam, we have been referred to as Ummat Iqra, the nation of read, the nation of ilm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us towards ilm, towards knowledge in various places in the Quran. The Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam instructed us towards knowledge in various ahadith. And the instruction towards knowledge is the key ingredient to our success as an ummah. And a person may differ. A person may say, what about Iman? Isn't Iman the reason for our success? Without knowledge there is no Iman. Without knowledge there is no Iman. The Prophet ﷺ was sent rahmatan lil alameen, as a mercy for mankind. But through what? Through knowledge of his statements and actions, and following him as an example. And where you see our lack of success as an ummah, where you see our lack of success as individuals, it is due to our lack of knowledge. That's the secret to our success and our lack of success. Knowledge or lack of knowledge. The person of knowledge is successful. The ignorant person is not successful. And you can apply that to any area of life. Any area of life, the formula proves to be correct. If I would like to be an engineer, I need knowledge. Without knowledge, what will happen? Malpractice. If I would like to be a doctor, I require knowledge. Without knowledge, what happens? Malpractice. And so is Islam any different? Is politics any different? Society and societal relationships any different? Marriage any different? Raising children any different? No. Knowledge leads to success. Lack of knowledge leads to failure. Fail to plan and you plan to fail, as is the famous quote. Likewise in our deen and in our dunya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially for us here in the UK and in the West, Allah has granted us an abundance of resources, an abundance. We have access to knowledge and information that no nation before us ever had access to. And we don't even need to leave our homes. In fact, you don't even need to get up from your chair, and you have access to knowledge and information that people travel the world for previously. Our ulama, our muhaddithun, our fuqaha, they would travel from one country to another for a single hadith or understanding of a single hadith. Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala wa radiya an, he studied in Iraq and in Hijaz and in Egypt. Today, you can study the knowledge of Imam al-Shafi'i from your phone without lifting your foot. But how many people do we have that study the knowledge of Imam al-Shafi'i? Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala wa radiya an, he spent years with the nomadic Arab people. Why? So that he could perfect the Arabic language in its purest form. Today, you can study the Arabic language without stepping up from your seat. How many people do we have studying the Arabic language? Our ulama of Quran traveled the lands to perfect and master recitation of the Quran. Dedicated years, in fact not years, dedicated lifetimes to the study and the perfection of the recitation of the Quran. We don't even have to get up from our seat. We can learn the Quran on our phones. If you have a laptop, type in on a laptop, you can find teachers now and you don't have to move. Our ulama spent centuries translating the knowledge of other civilizations that came before us, i.e. the civilization of Islam. They spent centuries translating their knowledge. And they would have to travel to various lands to acquire those manuscripts. And then they would sit in houses, in diyar, translation, proofreading, consideration of the meaning of words in one language and how to transfer that meaning into the Arabic language, and so on and so forth. And then people would come along and commentate, etc., etc. You have access to all of that on your computer screen, on your phone screen, for free. How many of us access it? How many of us are even concerned or have any concern to even understand what our ulama went through to contribute towards that which we call knowledge today? What led to us rising as a nation was our infatuation with learning and teaching and studying and understanding. Our infatuation with knowledge led to us rising, and leaving off knowledge led to our decline. From the very basic things to the grandest of things. And I will give a harsh example. Today you may hear Muslims complain about the situation of our ummah, and they say we don't have the same technologies as non-Muslims. We don't have the same infrastructure as non-Muslims. We don't have the same approaches in parliament and politics and so on and so forth as Muslims. But yet some of those same Muslims that complain don't clean themselves when they go to the toilet or the bathroom. Is that not knowledge? Did the Prophet ﷺ not come to teach us how to clean ourselves in the bathroom as well? Yes, he did. And we like to talk about that which is external. Do we talk about that which is internal? My heart, understanding and comprehension of Islam internally is more important than understanding and comprehension of Islam externally. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said in a very simple hadith, and a hadith which is not strange to most of us, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Every action is by its intention. What does that mean? It means that you have to practice Islam internally in order for your external Islam to be considered correct. When I recite the Quran, who am I reciting for? When I pray, who am I praying for? And we look to the ulama of the past in various fields, various sciences, which I'm going to discuss. Whether it was chemistry, mathematics, science, natural sciences, philosophy, geography, politics, whatever science or field the ulama of Islam went into, this hadith had a very important part to play. Today, because we live in a very materialistic and consumeristic world, we think about the tangible profit that can be made from the sciences or the knowledge that we acquire and teach. I am not going to study medicine unless I can earn myself a career in medicine. I am not going to study history or geography or philosophy, etc., unless there is a profit to be made. And for that reason, the designed correlation between knowledge and profit, for that reason, many people have left off knowledge. Many people have left off education. You hear young people today, and they will complain and say, why do I need to go to university? Why do I need to educate myself? I can make money without going to university. I can make money without education. Unfortunately, they haven't understood the purpose of knowledge. Many of the greatest of ulama that our nation produced were poor, impoverished. They were impoverished. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, he lived a life of poverty, his entire life. He was poor. Many of our ulama, they died in prison. In fact, you cannot join between dunya and ilm. If you want to be an alim, it's not possible to acquire dunya and ilm at the same time. Why? Because ilm requires every single part of you. In order to become an alim of Islam, it's not like the ulama of the West. Scholarship in Islam is not like scholarship in the West. Today you study for 4 years, you study for 2 years, add another 4 years to that, and you're considered a scholar. No, not in Islam. In Islam, you have to study for decades. You are not considered an alim until you have white hairs on your face that can testify to the life you spent in studying and seeking. It requires every single part of you. Take into consideration the qira'at. To master one qira'ah, how long does it take? One of the contemporary qurra of our time, the muqri'een, those who recite and listen and give ijazah in recitations, etc. He said, I did not spend less than 4 years per teacher. Times that by 10. And he read to multiple teachers for each qira'ah. Times that by 10, 40 years. 40 years. In order to become someone who is qualified as a scholar in the recitation of the Quran. What about hadith? What about fiqh? What about language? Where has the himmah gone? Why do we not have any concern for knowledge? Why do we not value knowledge? If a scholar comes and we have a talk about something to do with Islam, perhaps we get 30, 40 people that attend. And we say, Alhamdulillah, that's a good attendance. But someone comes and gives a concert in the O2 Center. How many thousands of people attend? A boxing match, 80,000. In Muslim countries today, boxing matches fill up arenas quicker than an alim fills up a masjid when he's giving a lecture or a talk. Why? Because we don't know what knowledge is. We have no concern. And the Prophet ﷺ, he gave us so many ahadith. The first, فضل العلم على العابد كفضل عليكم أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, when he was speaking to the Sahaba. He said, the virtue of the scholar in comparison to the abid. Who is the abid? The one who worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day and night. The scholar is better than that person. He said, the difference between the two is like me compared to you. The Prophet ﷺ speaking to the Sahaba. And us in comparison to the Sahaba, what are we? Nothing. We can never reach the level of the Sahaba. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying that the alim is like me in comparison to you, i.e. the Sahaba. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله به طريقا إلى الجنة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Whoever seeks a path wherein he uses that path to acquire knowledge, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do for that person? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes easy for him a path to Jannah. Why are we here? Why are we here? To acquire Jannah. To acquire Allah's pleasure. But what keeps us from Jannah? Alhaakum at-takathur. Chasing after this dunya. At-takathur. Trying to acquire more and more and more. The Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? He said, when a person enters into the grave, ينقطع عنه عمله إلا من ثلاث أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. His actions, they stop except for 3 things. صدقة جارية. Ongoing charity. I built a hospital. I built a school. I built an orphanage. As long as those things exist, then I will continue to acquire good deeds in my grave, if I had the right intention. أو علم ينتفع به. Or knowledge which benefits others. Think about the 4 Imams. Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad, rahimahumullah ta'ala. Until today, over 1,200 years roughly later, we are still benefiting from their knowledge. We are still learning Islam through the formulations that they provided for us and their students. You go to the Indian continent, the subcontinent, you find most of them to be Hanafis. Imam Abu Hanifa has a reward for every single prayer. The Middle East and parts of North Africa, Imam al-Shafi'i and Imam Malik. Parts of the Middle East, Imam Ahmad. For every prayer that a person is praying, these individuals are getting reward. During their lifetimes though, there were individuals that were seeking out the dunya. They were seeking out large buildings perhaps, and gold and silver, and the wealth of their time. Where are those people now? Their wealth left them when they entered into the grave. Likewise, Imam al-Nawawi, rahimahullah. How many books did he author? How many books benefit the Ummah of Islam? One book in particular, Riyadh al-Salihin. Just Riyadh al-Salihin. How many masajid read Riyadh al-Salihin daily? Imam al-Nawawi is getting rewarded globally. Globally because of one book. And yet he has multiple books that people are benefiting from. The Shafi'i madhab, you want to master it, you need to study his books. Imam al-Ghazali say the same thing. Today, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, and Ibn al-Jawzi, Ibn Rajab, etc., etc., Ibn al-Qayyim, all of these names. What was it that benefited them after death? Not dunya. What? Ilm. Ilm. And we are in a state now where we need ilm. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, toward the end of time, knowledge will be taken away. Knowledge will be taken away. And subhanAllah, look at how dependent we are becoming upon technologies. We are letting go of knowledge ourselves. Yesterday, in order to find a hadith, you would have to know how to use the books of hadith. Today, you have self-claimed scholars that type in a hadith online and present it to the world. Introduce AI to the situation, and you will have khatibs who don't write their own khutbahs anymore. They don't do their research. Soon, books that produce themselves, etc. We are in need of knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, though, gives us the type of knowledge that we need. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Ilm that leads to khashya. Not just any knowledge. And the ulama of the past, they said, Al-alimu man amila bi'ilmihi. That the scholar is the one who acts upon his knowledge. And they said, لَيْسَ الْعِلْمُ بِكَثْرَةِ الرِّوَايَةِ وَلَكِنَّهُ نُورٌ يَقْذِفُهُ اللَّهُ فِي قَلْبِ الْعَبْدِ. They said that knowledge is not simply the amount of riwayat. It's not about how many modes of recitation I know. It's not about how many ahadith I can quote. What is it about? It's about light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places in the heart of a slave, the heart of a servant. If knowledge was simply about the amount, Iblis would be alimul ulama. Iblis would be the scholar of all scholars. Why? Because he's seen the unseen. He saw Adam in his inception, alayhi salam. He knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows the angels. He has certainty in the akhirah. But it's not about simply having information. What is it about? It's about action upon information. It's about internal change. It's about rectification. It's about taming the nafs, taming the soul, taming the passions, the appetites, the lower desires. What's the point in practicing Islam and I'm oppressing people? That's not practicing Islam. I'm growing my beard and I'm wearing a thobe, but yet I'm oppressing my family members at home. That's not Islam. That's hypocrisy. I'm wearing a hijab and an abaya, but I'm swearing and I'm cursing. That's not practicing Islam. Hypocrisy. Virtue signaling. Islam starts from within. Islam starts from the heart. Islam starts with character. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was sent to complete good character. If I don't have good character and I'm praying, what type of Islam is that? What type of Islam is that? And the Prophet ﷺ in various ahadith informed us that some of the traits of the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, is bad character. Bad character is a trait of hypocrisy. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah wants good for, He gives him what? Comprehension of deen. What is comprehension? If I have a person who recites the Quran beautifully and narrates a hadith with perfection and memorizes books in hadith, but yet this person is lying and stealing and committing atrocities, etc., that person is not a person of knowledge or a person of comprehension. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ told us about a particular group of Muslims who will be from the people of hellfire, that the Quran does not go past their throats. The Quran does not go past their throats. Meaning what? Shallow understanding. It's not an internal practice. A man marries a woman, has children with her, and goes away and leaves the children and the wife in a non-Muslim land, and then prays 5 times a day, prays Qiyam al-Layl. What type of understanding is that? What type of understanding is that? Whereas the Prophet ﷺ, he said simply, كَفَى لِلْمَرْءِ إِثْمًا أَن يُضَيَّعَ مَن يَقُودُ أَوْ مَن يَعُولُ. It's enough of a sin to go to hellfire that a man is negligent in those whom he is responsible for. A very simple hadith. We are in need of ilm, but ilm with amal. Not ilm with YouTube channels and ilm with flashy posts. We're in need of ilm with amal. And ilm with amal takes time, takes dedication, it takes principles. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائما بالقسط. That he himself testifies to his oneness. The angels testify to his oneness. And who else? Who else does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention besides him and the angels? In the same verse, ulul ilm, the people of knowledge, qa'iman bil qist. We are in need of knowledge and action. And our young people need to wake up and realize the importance of knowledge in our lives and dedicate. We need great minds dedicated to knowledge. What type of knowledge? There are 2 types we're in need of. Knowledge of the deen, number 1. How much knowledge of the deen do I need to know as a person? Depends on what I want to achieve. If I simply want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and take care of my affairs, then I need to know as much of the deen that relates to my affairs. If I am a mechanic, I need to know that which relates to being a mechanic. If I am a farmer, that which relates to being a farmer. If I am a tradesperson, that which relates to being a tradesperson. I need to know the rights of my children, my wife, my family, my society, and so on and so forth. I need to know those things. If I don't know those things, then I'm sinning. I'm sinning. You wouldn't drive a car without knowing how to drive, but yet we drive our lives in this dunya without knowing how to drive, without having the knowledge which is necessary. The Fatiha, for example, reciting Fatiha. How many of us have perfected our Fatiha to the degree where it's going to be accepted? The ulama, they say the one who cannot recite Fatiha properly and he is able to recite it properly, but he's negligent in learning how to recite Fatiha properly, this person is at risk of his salawat not being accepted. And I need to know that which is necessary for the dunya, for my community, if I want to be someone who makes a difference in my community. You have 2 types of people. The one who's concerned about himself and the one who's concerned about his community. For the one that's concerned about his community, I need to look at the situation. What type of knowledge are we in need of? We're in need of knowledge of deen, number 1, yes. And number 2, knowledge of dunya. What type of knowledge of dunya? Knowledge of infrastructure, knowledge of politics, knowledge of economics, knowledge of science, knowledge of philosophies, knowledge of medicines. All of the things which are necessary to establish, maintain, and grow a community that operates based upon Islam. That's what we're in need of today. And for those that consider themselves too old, you have children. You have children. Plant in your children's hearts the seed of learning for the sake of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not simply learning to buy a house and a car and have a wife and children and live a mediocre life. Look at our purpose. Our purpose here is not to be here. Our purpose here is not to be here. This is not our place, our abode. Our purpose here is to work for what is coming, the next life. And this dunya is irrelevant. This dunya is worthless. If it was worth something, those who deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not be given an atom's worth of this dunya if it meant anything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today you have those, not only do they disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they openly challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they challenge Allah with their sins. Yet Allah gives them the dunya. I'm going to chase after something that is worth nothing, and when death comes to me, what's going to happen? I'm going to look back and be regretful. There's no going back. There's no going back once death comes. So what should I spend my time doing? Working for my purpose, which is what? It's not simply to worship. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Yes, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mean ritualistic worship alone. It means serving the purpose of Islam. The Sahaba understood that. The Tabi'een understood that. The Atba'u Tabi'een understood that. We don't understand it. We don't understand it. And the Prophet ﷺ foretold this happening anyway. He said there will come a time, the end of times, where the enemies of Islam will come to eat the Muslims like they eat from a dinner table. And the Sahaba said, will we be small in number? He said, no. But fear of death will enter your hearts. And you will chase after the tails of cows. Meaning you will chase after that which has no significance. This dunya and the lowest forms of dunya. We need to wake up as individuals and as a collective and realize our purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us as a community great minds, great wealth. We need to use it to serve His deen. We need to use it to serve His deen. And if we don't, we should not complain about what is to come tomorrow. Because we gave up the opportunity to work when the opportunity presented itself. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده وصلوات ربي وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء ومن تبعه وبعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a surah, Al-Quran, Al-Kitab, Al-Fatiha. And we recite this surah in every single salah. And we are reminded of the truth in this surah in every single salah for the one who understands. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. We recite this surah every single time we pray. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us within the surah the key to success. Guide us to the straight path. What is the straight path? The path of knowledge and action. The path of our Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba and those who followed in their footsteps, i.e. knowledge and action. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. Not those who have earned your anger. Who are those who have earned the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Those who have knowledge but no action. Those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compares to donkeys carrying books in the Quran. وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. And not those who have gone astray. Who are those who have gone astray? Those who have action without knowledge. Take a walk on Sundays down the road and have a look at action without knowledge. Dancing and nakedness in the name of glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you can also see those who have knowledge. They know who the Prophet ﷺ is. They know the halal from the haram, but they don't implement it. They find loopholes. They find loopholes. They find their way around things. Those who are successful are those who have knowledge and action. Knowledge and action. We are in the examination room. Our exam is going to come to an end very soon. And those who succeed are those who have knowledge and action. Would I like to be successful? Yes, I would. What do I need to do then? I need to learn about my deen and I need to practice it. If not, I will be unsuccessful. And in our time today, yes, it's hard. Why? Because we live in a society that glorifies material, glorifies the stomach, glorifies the private part, glorifies the desires. And that's why we see society becoming more perverted by the day. Because the more you consume, the more stimulants you need in order to be satisfied. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made clear our purpose here and has given us clear instruction on how to get to where we're supposed to be going. But as the saying goes, you can take the camel to the water, but you cannot make the camel drink. We are the camel. We are at the water. Whether we drink or not is our choice. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and grant us knowledge and action. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وارض اللهم عن أبي بكر وعن عمر وعن عثمان وعن علي وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين. اللهم اجعلنا من أهل العلم والعمل يا رب العالمين. اللهم تب علينا واعف عنا. اللهم استخدمنا ولا تستبدلنا. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين يا رب العالمين. ونجنا من أنفسنا ومن شرور أعمالنا إنك مجيب الدعوات. وأقم الصلاة.